Looks like they're off.
I'm a tad bit behind, so I'm going to refresh.
Yeah, go ahead and refresh that. Early on in the game, there's not a whole lot of things that our runners can do without the boots, so a lot of the movement that they have early in the game is very precise and very important that they can save as many frames here as possible. Later on, when we have dashing, we can cross most of these screens very quickly, but for now it's about mashing buttons, clearing screens, and not nudging into things.
Also, a speed technique called pumping, which is basically resetting Link's movement animation to the most amount of 2 pixel movements as possible. So as far as he's moving north and west on the screen, you can reset his movement animation to, like, you want to get like 2 pixel, 2 pixel, 2 pixel, but usually it goes 2 1 2 1 2 1. But technique known as pumping, you can save a little bit of time over the course of the round.
And there's really no limit to how fast you can pump, because the human hands can't really press the D-pad fast enough to do like perfect pumping. So our runners can always be practicing it. It never fails to put more work into it.
So that's achieved by holding the direction you want to walk in and tapping the other direction. So you'll see sometimes you'll see the movement moving like kind of like janky up or janky left. That's their pumping.
Here in the castle, there's only a few instances of RNG before we get to Zelda. One of them is where the screen guard in the hallway spawns, whether or not this obstructs our players as they move towards the basement. And then the next room, we'll see how they handle the blue guard. The optimal way for our runners to kill this guard is to have the guard die as close to the door as possible, and to obviously do so in a sword slash and a sword spin, or 3 slashes. Our runners did pretty well getting through that room, getting the key close to the door.
Yeah, it looked pretty clean all around. Green guy going down with a single spin slash here, and onto the boomerang room where you poke the guard into the corner, and then you will release the slash after that to kill him relatively quickly.
We then get to use our newly acquired boomerang to get through the door and pull the key through it while we're walking through the door. Here's a good example of where our runners are going to face left or right coming out of stairs. This prevents the stutter step that Link takes when he comes out of the staircase, prevents about 20 or so frames of lag.
So right here you see Dode going for the more tried and true 8 slash method, but on the bottom right you see Temple picking up the pot, going for the pot and 4 slash. Both methods are very viable, but and both of them were executed very well.
It looks like Nathacsa did the exact same thing. The biggest thing for our runners is to avoid killing enemies if they don't have to, and to avoid getting hit. The boomerang is very useful for the entire first part of the light world, as you'll have it equipped until you make your way to pick up the bow in Eastern Palace.
Yeah, it definitely can save you in some sticky situations, like if you're getting cornered by some green guards and escape here through the castle, you can quickly boomerang one of them and just walk through the sprite.
Our runners are going to take the exact same screens back through the castle to get up to the upstairs where the shelf is so they can push to get back to the sewers. They run into the same kind of RNG issues on the way back up, but it's a little easier to get past the blue guard now that they don't have to kill him.
Fun fact, if you neglect to pick up the lantern in the cell with Zelda, you cannot push the shelf.
The game really tries hard to get you to pick it up, though. They give you 3 different chests where you can pick up that lamp.
Yeah, it's true. The one right in the first house, the one off to the right, and they after you get the sword, and then the one in the cell. Yep.
Going through our first rooms in the behind the shelf, we have just a couple of instances of RNG our runners are going to look out for. They're going to watch out for these snakes you'll see on Dode's screen and the rest of the runners. The spawn pattern and the movement is all pretty random. And for the most part, the key that you get from the rad in the next room is the most important RNG, and I guess in Escape, in my opinion.
So up on Dode's screen here, you'll see a very good example of pumping. And Xyrak the same. Temple is going to take a walking approach here, but right here is Xyrak. That's definitely out what pumping looks like right there.
We talked before about how Link alternates between 2 and 1 pixels per frame of movement. In water, it's much slower than that. So pumping, you get all of the benefits of those, you know, upwards and leftwards movements when you normally would go even slower. Nathacsa got trolled pretty badly by the key rad, getting northwest key rad and a little bit of bumps there.
Yeah, that's the one you always want to watch out for right there. Everybody else seemed like they got pretty good key rad RNG. Dode is the first one through Escape here, followed quickly by Xyrak and Temple.
All 3 of those runners getting just over 6 minutes. Pretty good, well, pretty decent time in a race.
Dode had a sub 6. He had a 5:58.
Nathacsa almost dying before getting to the priest.
Everybody getting the sang card. I can't imagine Nathacsa's not going to get the sang card. I'm pretty sure we're going to see everybody get the sang card.
It'd be a bold strategy with a quarter of a heart left.
Yeah, of course. Well, a fun fact here is in the priest cutscene here, if you have 1 or less hearts, you actually get through that talking sequence a little bit faster than normal.
I still haven't found a technical explanation for it, but the best explanation I've heard is likening it to the red bar glitch, or not glitch, but the exploit that you would use in Pokemon speedruns, where the hardware just can't do all of those sounds at once and triggers the next event just a few frames faster.
Just as a means to clear the overload, huh? The Sang Cart's one of those safeties that's pretty safe to take at any level of skill, whether you're a newbie or whether you're a 124 runner.
One thing we'll notice with our runners when they come past that Armos Knight, 3 of our runners just did, you also see on the Nathacsa screen, it's actually fastest to boomerang this Armos Knight because it actually prevents lag when you try to jump off the ledge just south of it, because it's not moving on screen.
Oh, that's interesting.
Here in Eastern Palace, we have a few different rooms that are important to look out for. Xyrak and Dode are going through the skeleton room, which normally spawns 4 different Stalfos. If you throw pots in the right places, you can actually trigger them and kill them in the same frame.
Looked like Dode was a little to the left, so he got the 3. The Temple cleans it up very nice. He gets the 2. While Nathacsa is heading toward the Stalfos room as we speak, let's see how they do.
He even went after the extra heart there.
And a little bit of rando, she picks up the compass there.
Yeah, that can be an easy reflex to forget about. I did that in Turtle Rock the other day with the map. I was not very happy about that. Here we have our runners doing the damage skip. They're going to take a damage boost off the Popo, try to use the invincibility frames to pick up the pot in the middle of the anti-fairies. Once the invincibility frames end, they'll be standing on the switch to activate the big key, and they can do it with a heart and a half instead of clearing out the entire room.
Temple with a little bit of trouble taking an extra heart of damage there. Let's see how he handles the rest of the dungeon. I imagine he's going to go a little bit safer here.
Yeah, in this room, the first dark room, you can easily bump into the green Igor. That's a hard thing to watch out for, and they do a whole heart of damage when they hit you.
Nathacsa coming very, very close to death in the anti-fairy skip room. Half a heart as we speak.
Xyrak and Dode giving us our first look at the Zelda gamer room. All those cannonballs are completely random, so it's good to see that they got through without one taking a hit and two having to slow down. Temple seems to have emerged just alright. Here in the Armos room, we see Xyrak taking a not too commonly seen left upper side strategy. The idea is the same though, and comes out victorious.
Temple starting his fight using the more conventional top right setup. A very nice fight out of Dode, Xyrak, and Temple.
It looks like Dode's strategy was a little faster, as I think he entered the fight afterwards. After Armos here, we get to see our first example of spin speed. Our runners can take advantage of a Japanese 1.0 exclusive glitch where if you charge up a spin and dash the frame after you release that spin, you cancel the animation and you're walking as if you're constantly running. If they execute this correctly, they can get through the next overworld screen very quickly.
One of the small list of minor glitches that are allowed in this particular category. We'll cover them as we see them. This is the first instance of spin speed.
Nathacsa unfortunately got one arrow short on one of the Armos, and it messed up the entire spin cycle, so had to resort to some backup strategies.
Looks like Temple's going with the rupees in Sahasrala's back room here, whereas Dode and Xyrak are going to be going for the rupee route, aka the bonus tree. We'll cover that as we get closer to it as well.
We have another opportunity for a spin speed here heading to the library. It looks like Xyrak elected to just simply dash, didn't seem to get it right away.
That spin speed's kind of hit or miss with people. Like, it's definitely a strategy not to take it, and you can see by the way he dashed that he's definitely used to not taking it.
They certainly call it the unholy spin speed for a reason. Same one here leaving the library.
Personally, I spin speeded, you know.
I think the most important one is after you go to the Dark World and you come back and you got Usain Bolt to contend with. Nathacsa also seems to have picked up the safety rupees in the back of Sahasrala's hut. At the end of the day, all of our runners are going to need 110 of them exactly, both to bribe Kiki to follow them and to bribe Kiki to open Palace of Darkness.
The price of opening doors in Hyrule is pretty steep, wouldn't you say?
I mean, if you think that's bad, you see how much it costs to swim.
Well put, them. Well put.
Dode got to show us a really useful strategy for speed tech here in Link to the Past. If you can use the pause screen to change an item that you need to change anyway, and then change direction, you can do it optimally without missing any, or without putting the wrong input in, kind of missing your dash.
It also gives you a little bit of time to think about your next action too, so it's kind of like a small break in a very input-intensive speedrun such as this.
It's very useful in bosses. It's underused in bosses, in a lot of people's opinion.
Temple not too far behind Xyrak and Dode here, as both getting the small key to head to the big key room.
Desert Palace in Hole is probably the best place to have Mirror if you could ever have it early. It's just a collectathon, and you're going to backtrack a lot in this dungeon.
Yeah, that's true. One of our members in chat says, but yet, it only costs 10 rupees to hire 2 professional blacksmiths to improve a sword. And I have no argument there.
There must be a lot of metal supply in Hyrule.
I guess I could have one argument to that, is technically that's done in the light world. But, you know what, so is the flipper purchase.
I mean, King Zora could just be a crook.
Or that.
Desert Palace has a couple of kill screens that we haven't seen yet. Rooms that require runners to kill every enemy in them. There's a couple of different ways to handle them. For the most part, they want to just do a dash to get through at least 2 enemies at once.
So with Xyrak picking up Power Glove here, that's going to allow them to pick up lighter colored rocks. You'll see some darker colored rocks scattered throughout the landscape. They cannot pick those up as of yet, but they will be able to later.
Looks like Xyrak's trying for a very dangerous spin speed. Neither Xyrak or Dode ended up getting it. Better to just kind of not fall off that ledge. That's a costly time loss.
That's a bad one. Yeah, I've had that happen a few times going for that spin speed. I typically don't go for that one.
Me neither. It's just not worth it.
It appears though Nathacsa is on a bit of a side mission here to pick up some fairies. It looks like they went to get the bottle of Net and Kakariko.
And you can do this as early as, you know, Nathacsa did here. You could potentially even earlier, I guess, if you wanted to, before Eastern Palace. These are all safeties that you can take at any particular time. It just costs a little bit more time to grab them early. Then again, it's much more costly to die, so probably better that we did this if Nathacsa wasn't too confident in making through these dungeons without any kind of deaths.
Absolutely.
Definitely a safe strategy for racing.
Dode is the first one to get into land mode chamber here. Everybody's favorite RNG boss.
Yeah, where they spawn in the first cycle is predetermined, but where they fly to isn't, and and everything is random from that point forward. So our runners are hoping to have all 4 arrows into each one, or equivalent sword strikes within about 3 or 4 cycles, and they both got 3, I think, or was that 4?
It's a great looking 3 cycle by Dodechehedron there. Definitely not a 10 cycle as his name would suggest.
Xyrak finishing off Lamb Molus in 6 cycles, which was clean for what it was.
It was a very nice fight by Dode. Very well done.
Yeah, I'm impressed by 3.
Temple having a little bit more trouble. Down to 1 heart here. We still have all 3 snakes alive.
One of the biggest challenges fight is that when you use the bow and arrow, if that arrow misses, you gotta wait until it collides with something to shoot another arrow.
Yes, that's a good point. If our viewers may not be realize that he can't just rapid fire unless it hits them. Absolutely right.
And the top
very
right,
nice job, Temple.
Yeah, that was a good fight. We do get to see our first example of fake flippers. Well, I guess this is the only one we're going to see in the run. It looks like Xyrak's going to go after it too. If you jump into the water exactly 1 frame before a screen transition, or if you move over 1 frame later, the game doesn't really understand what's going on. Even though you don't have flippers, it says, well, you're swimming right now, so you can't have gone through the screen transition without doing that. So it just says, okay, I guess you're swimming. And we use that to save about 6 to 8 seconds on the overworld. However, our runners can potentially soft lock there too.
We have a provision set up for this tournament. As you can see, no major glitches also implies no save and quit. But for the purposes of our tournament, if you do happen to soft lock on fake flippers, we do allow you to save and quit. In the group stages, you would save and quit, and you would go to Link's house, and you would proceed as normal. In the bracket stages, however, we need to make that error a little bit more damning. So what you have to do there is you have to go back and touch the bush and then proceed as you would.
That bush is commonly where people set up the fake flippers glitch from. If you move in an exact pattern northeast, you'll almost always get it.
The setup for it is pretty easy. It just takes a little bit of practice. It's a pretty free setup. But as far as the setup goes, but things can still go wrong once you're actually in the glitch, as stated.
Yeah, if you take any damage whatsoever, the screen starts wrapping around. It starts getting kind of like dance party disco-ish. We don't want that. Looks like everybody managed to get through that so far. We still have to see from Nathacsa which way they're going to go.
So Dode is in the Hera with the key, on his way to the tower room. Let's see if we see some boom swag out of the Dode Meister. Looks like he's setting up for it. Meanwhile, Temple taking the free hit with the Old Man of the Mountain, so that's another relatively low time cost safety to take, especially in a deadly place like Death Mountain. If you're down to like 2 or 3 hearts, it's a good thing to do. I mean, going into Hera with 2 hearts is fun.
If Flying Cabbage and Golem Squirrels weren't enough for you, or Tektites, there's not really a lot of hearts in Tower of Hera itself, so this is also a safety strategy for the next dungeon too. Xyrak over here trying to give us a nice show with the boom dash in the basement. Unfortunately, couldn't pull it off.
Temple has just arrived at Tower with full hearts. Xyrak with 2. We'll see how that plays out. Oh, down to 1. Oh no, Xyrak, be careful.
Saw the bone, apparently. That was close. Nathacsa did actually finish up Lamolis just now, making their way to... Well, we'll find out shortly which route they take to get to Death Mountain.
Dode in a precarious position with 2 hearts, going to the bomb jump. We'll be left with 1 afterwards. Be careful. Xyrak and Dode with 1 playing with fire here.
Dode's scaring me over there.
Temple, meanwhile, cleaning up the tower room very nicely, taking his time, making sure he doesn't get hit.
Oh, Dode did actually flip the switch to get the extra hearts. That was a smart plan. It only took 2 up to Moldorm. Seems to be looking for a really fast time through here.
Hitting the switch in a race is... Oh, he got middle hold. Oh, no. He's going to fall down 2 floors.
If it wasn't bad enough to fall to Moldorm, when you fall through that center hole, you're almost guaranteed... Yeah, you are guaranteed to fall through the next hole underneath, and it's a long climb back up. But thankfully, with that switch flip, you should be able to pick up a couple of safety hearts to make another attempt at this.
Xyrak, meanwhile, coming into our Troldorn fight. 4 hearts. Looks like he hit the switch as well. Very smart race strat to hit the heart switch.
I agree. I mean, it's just insurance. People fall to Moldorm all the time.
Xyrak making it through. Moldorm down Dode at the same time. I'm sorry, actually just a few seconds ahead. Temple setting up for his bomb jump.
Temple took the, I think the probably safer route for the bomb jump. If you do a dash bonk right alongside the explosion, you can bounce yourself across from further away. It's a lot easier to set up. Although both Dode and Xyrak use some very consistent setups of their own.
Something we haven't covered yet, I just saw Xyrak do, is something called the quick hop. So if you come up to a south-facing ledge and you tap the A button, which is the dash button, you tap the A button just as you come to the edge, you can actually jump off the edge right away instead of pushing up against it briefly and then jumping off. So you can see Xyrak and Dode pulling on the first tree there, getting 4 blue rupees. That is the rupee route, so that's the first bonus tree. So that's the first bonus is the 20 total rupees. So now they're going to set up for the next tier bonus, and that's they want to kill 4 enemies without getting touched. And they're going to pull the next bonus tree on the way back, and they're going to get four red rupees, which is 80. And that'll give them enough money to pay off Kiki.
They can also avoid incrementing that prize pack counter by simply dashing through enemies to kill them. We're going to see them try to do this at a later point with a certain set of guards and a couple of enemies in Aghanim's Tower, where they're heading next. And if they do this correctly, there's a guaranteed chance of getting, well, not guaranteed chance, there's a guaranteed fairy you can get in the room before Chain Chomps in Turtle Rock almost an hour later.
Looks like Temple made up a little bit of time in Hera there against Xyrak. Not too far behind now.
Yep, and just to clarify for the audience out there, our racers are not all in one race here. It's the top two, Nathacsa and Dodechehedron, against each other, and Xyrak and Temple against each other in their own individual groups.
Just with their races airing at the same time, it's a lot easier to commentate and restream them together versus separately. So that's why we have the setup such as this.
There were 4 total races going on at this hour. And this is just the group phase, folks. Stay tuned to Speed Gaming, all of the channels. We're going to have a lot more tournament races for you. Looks like Nathasha's choice to pick up the bug net and the bottle really paid off here in Hera.
Yep, saving them some time from that unfortunate Death and Beetle room. Dude, going with the I'm not sure the name of that strand, but that's a strand I do and I love it.
It's called Gold Split. That's not the name, I just made that up.
Will work for the purposes of this commentary. With the Gold Split. I like it.
Now, in this dark room in the tower, or the castle tower, it's very important for our runners to avoid alerting these guards. It's a big time loss if they start, bouncing through those narrow walkways.
Temple with the Gold Split as well. Very nicely done, dude.
Did Temple pick up Sahasrara rupees?
He did.
Oh,
He's
okay.
all set. Yeah, Nathacsa and Temple both picked up Saha. Alright, so in just a few rooms here, as Dode and Xyrak make their way through Circle of Pot, we're going to get up to the Aghanim 1 fight, which, as you know, or may not know, is the biggest one of the biggest RNG fests in the entire game, in which you can get trolled with 1 or 15 blue balls, or any number therefore in between. So if y'all in chat want to try to theorize how many blue balls our runner's going to get, we can have at it, we can see who was right, and we'll do a little bit of fun.
Alright, out of the 4 of them, what do you think is going to be the worst?
5.
That's ambitious. We've had a lot of really rough RNG runs for a lot of folks this tournament. It'd be exciting to see if anybody gets 0. There was one person who in a race had 15.
Was it Scrivo?
I mean, I wasn't going to say his name. Out of respect.
It's actually happened to him twice.
God bless him. God bless him.
With a 1 in 32,000 chance.
You think you'd get like a lotto ticket after that?
Yeah, for real. Looks like Dode has 1, Xyrak also with 1. So the way the Aghanim fight works is it goes in cycles of 4 attacks, followed by a lightning attack. The first attack out of any given cycle will always be a reflectable ball that will damage Aghanim. The next 3 attacks will be a coin flip between a blue ball and a damaging ball. Long story short, you're beating the odds to get 15.
I believe we have 4 each.
Yep. Should be it. One for Temple.
Alright, so Dode and Xyrak with 4 and 4. I have to wonder if this is a more nervous moment in an RTA setting or in just trying to go for your PB, like, you know, outside of a race.
Speaking from experience, you can go from green to red if Aghanim decides. Like, for instance, my PB has 2 blue balls, so if I get 3, I'm probably losing a couple seconds. If I get 2, I'm probably gaining a couple seconds. Mainly because my pathing in my PB through A-Tower wasn't as good as it is now.
Was that 3 for Temple?
I want to say that was either 3 or 2.
In general, for our runners, getting 3 is pretty average. Anytime you get less than that, you're feeling alright about it, and anytime you get more than that, usually it's a good reason to complain.
Yeah,
it's always fun when the speedrun comes down to coin flips.
Looks like Xyrak's a little short on rupees here, so he's going to be farming these ropas. He's at 108. This is going to give Temple a chance to catch up here.
These do have a pretty high rupee drop rate.
And the one thing to remember here, though, is if you boomerang an enemy and kill it, you'll get a 1 rupee drop. So if you need 2, your best bet's to go boomerang 2 enemies and kill them.
I'm going to put that one in my back pocket.
But being short 2 there, I saw him go to the top path. That did cost him some time. And Temple is charging right behind him.
Here in Palace of Darkness, we have ourselves another quick collectathon for small keys and then the big key. We'll also get to see a really fun trick called the hammer jump.
Yup.
Of which there are multiple different strategies to, you know, get the exact right 2-pixel perfect bomb placement and link placement, all while the bridge is collapsing. It's pretty difficult, high stress moment in this run.
I use the strat with the visual cue on the left wall.
I use the sword myself.
I do know the sword one as well.
I'm curious to see if anybody's going to try bufferless.
Be hype. Dode's going to be the first one to step up to the yumping platform. Let's see what he goes with. Looks like he is going for the visual cue on the left wall. As you can see, the pause buffers.
Couldn't have asked for much more than that. A few less buffers might have been better, but I mean, that's clean. The important thing is that you get it. If you end up buffering like 20 times and then you still miss it, that's a huge time loss.
Xyrak was a little high, still is a bit high on this platform here. Well, it appears as though Xyrak and Temple both got the mushroom, so I'd imagine they're both going for powder. Xyrak falling in his first attempt.
Yeah, I think he wanted a little more time. He may not realize that walking along the edge of the bridge itself actually does restore Link to full walking speed. In the center of the bridge, it's not as fast. Gets it anyway, though.
Second time is the charm here. Temple on his way up to the Yump. See how he does with it. Temple using the sword lineup. He gets it.
Just 3, wow. 3 buffers is very good.
He used the sword lineup for the other for the second pixel. It's typically how he does it.
One thing that newer runners who are struggling with that trick may benefit from knowing when it comes to that is, we talked earlier about how pumping changes the amount of pixels that Link moves per frame. Well, you can pause buffer pretty much on the frame. I mean, you can move exactly one frame of movement. So if you want to time it correctly with the pause buffers and line Link up, you should know that moving up and left is going to be 2 frames, down and right is going to be 2 pixels, down and right is going to be 1 pixel, so you can use that to your advantage there.
Very true, very true. I tend to try to use sword buffers too as well, which will move you 2 pixels, I believe, if you do it right.
Looks like Nathacsa is climbing up Aghanim Tower to fight Aghanim, and Dodechehedron is in the Helmasaur King fight. This is a somewhat RNG heavy fight. We have to hit the shell of the boss 17 times with a hammer, or 4 bombs if you're good at that. Nobody really does that in too many runs, but then you need to get at least 6 sword slashes, or you can use hammer or sword spins, which are tighter hitboxes. Dode, with 2 hearts left, managed to get through it.
Temple is on his way downstairs to clean up the rest of the pod. Xyrak is up to the door into the fight. So what you really don't want to see is the fire. You don't want to see Helmasaur spit a lot of fireballs, because they tend to really crowd you and make things a lot more difficult. They especially throw you off and you wind up getting whipped by the tail. At least that's the one thing that I always ran into. But stuck with it. Very nice kill.
With some good timing, our runners can actually despawn the fireball if it's on the screen when they actually destroy the shell. So you have to have Helmasaur King drop the fireball before you destroy it. But if you do that, you can give yourself a little bit of extra safety walking into the enraged phase of the boss.
Tempo getting the fireball dosage here, but taking his time, cleaning the fight up. Very nicely done, sir.
That was a good recovery. That fireball could have ended it. I think Nathacsa didn't get a single blue ball. Did anybody catch that?
So Dode is going to be performing yet another mining glitch here to get across the bridge. Some we call an item dash. With the hammer held high, he dashes right over the pegs.
If you had to say you had a favorite item dash in the game, what do you think it is?
Absolutely the hammer dash. It's so fun to watch.
I think that's probably my favorite, but I'm also wondering about shovel dash.
You know what? If the shovel dash dug up every spot you ran over, it would be hands down, indisputably the best item dash in the game, but it only digs up the last spot you ran on.
I think it's settled. I think you have a really good point there.
So an item dash is achieved by pressing the dash button and the item button on the same frame together. And it allows you to get the item's capabilities while dashing. In this case, hammering down the pegs. So you get to just dash right over the pegs, and they get hammered down as if you hammer them down individually.
The actual nature of the item while you're dashing depends on exactly which item it is. Like, for example, you can throw a boomerang in a different direction than you're throwing. If you have the right frame-perfect inputs. We got to see an example of that in Tower of Hera, but that's not really as prominent as the hammer dash is. That's the first really good example of it.
There's also hook dashing as well with the hook shot. So the dashing, doing the item dash with the hook shot actually gives you the same glitch state as spin speed, and it's activated the same way by touching stairs.
As the runners pick up their flute and decide whether or not they're going to pick up safeties here in Kakariko Village, we also have Nathacsa walking into Palace of Darkness. We'll see if Nathacsa ends up attempting the bomb jump or if they just end up walking around instead.
What about Chatters has said, item dash only works on the Japanese version, yes. Right. And the answer to that question is yes, but it's only the 1.0 version, not the Japanese 1.1 that came out after it. But the 1.0 is the one that you're looking for to perform all the minor glitches that you see here, which do not include the bomb jumps, actually. You can do those. I think you can do them on a US card. I may be wrong about that.
Yeah, bomb jumps are definitely an included mechanic there.
But stuff like item dashing and fake flippers, you can only do on the 1.0.
If you want to do all the fun tricks, you gotta take it all the way back to 1989.
Another fun fact about 1.0 is Link's hitboxes do not disappear while he's in the pit. So if you get hit by a fireball while you're falling, you still take damage.
Or if a wall master decides to pick you up right above Mothula.
That can also happen, and that's the worst feeling when that happens. I've had that happen. It's awful.
Rip, rip. Looking through Kakariko at these runners, I'm not sure if I don't think anybody picked up bug net or bottles at this point.
Temple just went for bottle in that, and he does have the he has the mushroom as well. Yeah, if I remember right, he usually goes for powder here, and he is.
Yeah, but this is usually the most common time that someone would grab it. Thieves Town and Blind tend to be a pretty difficult section. It's a pretty big spike in difficulty for dungeon, and having it there if you're not confident in the blind fight is really helpful. Hey, Nathacsa actually got the bomb jump.
Very nice. So all 4 of our runners executing the hammer jump.
That's a relief to see in a run. In a race setting, it's a very nerve-wracking trick.
I still say IPBJ is harder.
I don't know. You don't have the pressure of a collapsing bridge.
You got a fire bar, though.
That, and it's also very punishing if you miss that one. You can come back to the hammer jump pretty quickly.
You got a good point about the collapsing bridge, though. I'll give you that.
Or maybe I'm just bad at it.
Alright, Dodechehedron has bombed a hole in the floor. Xyrak is on his way to bomb that hole in the floor. Meanwhile, Dode is down in the prison to go rescue a maiden locked in the jail. And the maiden's gonna be like, take me outside! And, Dode ain't gonna do that.
I also got confirmation in chat that that Nathacsa's bomb jump was a bufferless. I'm impressed by that. That's really hard to do.
Oh, that's hype. Nice.
I see Reed here in the chat asking about how to get spin speed. You have to interrupt the spin animation with the sword, or not. You have to dash the frame after you release a spin. And you can only do it in the 1.0 version.
And then to trigger it, you need to touch stairs and then move cardinally off the stairs. So if you move diagonally off the stairs, you won't trigger it. You have to move cardinally.
That answers a lingering question of mine. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dode here doing the blind fight very cleanly. This is a scripted fight, so there's only so many things that can go wrong if you're doing it the exact same way every time. Dode went through the first 2 phases without taking any damage. It takes 3 hits with any weapon that you can damage blind with. Most people use their sword or sword beams. And then the 3rd phase it gets a little more chaotic, but cleaned it up very effectively.
Yep, as Unionistic just said, it is a scripted fight, so the idea is to stand in the right spot with your sword out and let blind do most of the work for you. Xyrak setting up for the 2nd phase. Takes a fireball. Oh,
that's a tough fireball to take. Because that's the one that messes up the next phase.
Yep. That's when things get hairy with this fight. And be careful. Be careful. One more hit. Come on. Nice.
Hey, all right.
Saved. It was definitely clenching for Xyrak there. That was a little nerve-wracking.
Xyrak's going to take a well-deserved refill of health on that. And Nathacsa's choice to take the bug net and bottle is paying off yet again. Well, that's a tough pattern, but managed to get around it. And with that, Nathacsa gets through Palace of Darkness.
Very nice. Very nice. Clean up the fight. Dodechehedron is going to warp out to Light World to go see a guy about a sword. Well, 2 guys about a sword, actually.
Xyrak's also grabbing some rupees that are potentially easy to forget if you're not a very good runner of the game like me. if you don't grab these rupees here on your way to the blacksmith, and then the rupees on the way to Skull Woods in the C-shaped house, you're not going to have enough to pick up your flippers in order to make it into Swamp Palace.
Yeah, you need 500 for flippers, which is extortionate at its finest. But you know what? You need the flippers to finish the game. So get that 500 rupees and pay that dang fish off.
These are like Olympic grade flippers. Like, I mean, at what point do you start charging that much? Has it got like a brand name on it?
Zora brand name is hard to come by, I guess.
Michael Zora's?
Michael Zora's. It has a little swoosh on the side. It's Nike. I mean, not for nothing, but I'm a licensed scuba diver, and my flippers in real life don't even cost that much.
See, now we have an expert opinion on it. Temple. Unfortunately taking a death. With the fairy, alright.
Yeah, he should be fine. Now, the blind refight, if you do die to blind and you go to the beginning, you go to the end of the dungeon, blind refight is one of the worst in the game. Because he's already spawned when you go in the room. How much divergence is there in strategy? Basically, when it comes to safety strats, like boss strats, whatever. But a lot of your divergence will come on safety items, yeah.
Arguably, one of the biggest differences is going to come from whether or not you take gold, sword, and silver arrows. This can affect the dungeon order you take. But for the most part, our runners can take a lot of these dungeons in different orders. They usually go mostly the same way because it's a couple of screen transitions or a flute or 2 faster.
Yeah, I can't imagine they're gonna their routes aren't gonna diverge a whole bunch here, because I'm pretty sure that aside from Temple and Xyrak, I'm pretty sure they're all set. Like, I know Temple and his runs, I know he just dropped gold and silvers, so I know that he's not going for that. I don't know about Xyrak though.
If they were to go after those, the sword and the arrows, they would probably do Misery Mire a little earlier than, say, Swamp.
That's a good point, yeah. Over on Nathacsa's screen, we have a first try dig on the flute. Well done, Nathacsa.
It's a very underrated skill in this community.
Looks like Xyrak's about to get a key, Dode's about to go fight a bug, and Temple's about to go see a guy about a sword. Meanwhile, Nathacsa is being accosted by Usain Bolt, the fastest red guard in all of Hyrule.
Now I wonder if he's wearing Nikes or Pegasus brand boots.
Oh, he has to be to get to move that fast.
Gotta be Pegasus.
Pegasus, just do it.
Xyrak, unfortunately failing the bomb jump, has only a heart and a half left, so it has to get it on this attempt.
Yeah, my mistake, it looks like Temple is going for half magic.
Half magic is a great safety to take in a race. Really doesn't take long to get. So they can just, as soon as they're going to get that upgrade for their sword.
Looks like Xyrak took a death to the bomb jump, but the chest is open. Either way, he red screened.
For the health refill.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. That was scripted then. Makes sense.
Dode getting really close in the moth fight.
Chat. And, nicely cleaned up, Dode. There's a nice menu sync there between Xyrak and Nathacsa. I caught that out of the corner of my eye.
Mothio is definitely one of those heavier with RNG kind of fights. You have the conveyor belts, which can go one of any 4 directions, and it changes up. You have those spikes in the wall that start going in random directions across the screen, or random spikes choose to go across. And Mothio itself actually does a lot of different strange movements. If you get the best RNG, you can do a poke dash to do an extra hit on Mothio right at the start of the fight. Mothio can't actually take damage from the spikes that are on the outside, and because of that immunity, also won't take damage if you knock him into the spikes, which is really difficult to deal with if Mothula chooses to hang out by the sides.
Also, in a completely unrelated turn of events, Mothula actually does not take damage from the gold sword.
Yeah, so if you're used to having gold sword from the randomizer, this is not a luxury that our runners have here.
Because the game categorizes gold sword damage the same as spikes. So Mothula doesn't take damage from spikes, therefore Mothula doesn't take damage from the gold sword.
Looks like Temple narrowly avoided a second hug from those mummies.
Quite a pretty solid mummy room, though.
Yes. Silk Soldier asking about gold sword pokes. I'm not sure on that one.
The answer is yes. Mothula will take damage from pokes because it's less than a full slash. So therefore it's not categorized as spike damage.
That makes sense. So dash pokes would work. Looks like Temple got the bomb jump pretty well as well.
Xyrak. Oh, go. All right.
Go ahead.
Looks like Dode goes quite medallion and is on his way to go see King Zora about some flippers. Xyrak is about to go see the catfish, and Temple is on his way to go find a bug.
It's important for our runners to do both of these things in the same order, to pick up the Quake Medallion and then get to go to Zora. This is a really out-of-the-way corner of the overworld map, and to be able to do this from the Dark World to the Light World makes it much more efficient. Looks like Temple decided to handle the Mummy Hellway using the half magic. Used it to great effect here.
Well played. Xyrak is bonking off the right wall there. While it may look funny, he's actually setting up for a quick warp, which saves about 34 frames on a light world transition.
Yep, all you have to do is to have the camera, the game camera, on the exact right Y pixel on the screen. So if you do that bonk there, it's always going to set up correctly, and it's just a free time save as long as you know it's there.
Temple with one heart in the moth fight. I am scared. Nicely handled. Very nicely done, Temple.
Looks like Xyrak is done with the extortion.
Yeah, but now he can swim.
Honestly, to me, the swim animation looks more like gulping a bunch of water.
It really does. I have to agree with you on that.
Dode's going to be the first one to walk through Ice Palace, trying to flip the switch there by using a bomb against the crystal and the bombable floor there. We get to see a nice tactic to execute both of these Stalfos Knights at the same time. Normally that room has a ton of lag. We'll also get to see the Ice Palace bomb jump coming up, of which there's 3 different setups our runners can use. They're going to be looking for exact pixel placement for both Link and for the bomb.
Dode getting the 0 pixel on the Link's feet setup, so you have a little bit more leeway with that setup. So all he literally has to do is take 1 step down, he's good, and that's exactly what he did.
Not only that, but managed to pull off a really nice looking hammer dash too.
Yep. It'll work if you see 0, 1, or 2 pixels under Link's feet. So obviously for 1 and 2 pixels, you need to be a little bit more precise on where Link is standing. So for that, I line up Link's hat with the bottom line. There's a black line right under the door.
Yeah, the shadow.
I line Link's hat up with that, and that's the setup for that. That's what I might use.
We also have Nathacsa getting through blind without having to use a fairy. That was good time save there. With that, we get to see Dodechehedron take the first attempt at Cold Stare. This will be an interesting fight. There's a couple different ways you can actually handle Cold Stare, but for the most part, pretty much everybody's just going to deplete their entire Fire Rod directly into the Ice Shell to start.
Dodechehedron taking on the Tri-Eye-Gehedron.
Alright. We need 6 slashes for each puff to be taken down, so it looks like we have about 4 or 5 on each one right now.
Nice fight.
They do 4 hearts of damage when they hug you, so it's closer than it looks when he has 5 hearts.
A bit of an uptick in difficulty for Ice Palace because the prize, so the item that you would garner in a normal playthrough in the Ice Palace, is the Blue Mail, which halves damage. So by the time you get to the boss of the Ice Palace, the game's kind of expecting you to have that. So Cold Stare hurts when you get to it.
And we're not all about that. Although we may see some of our runners pick up the Red Mail in Ganon's Tower. That's a short time expenditure for relative safety against Ganon.
Yeah, that's a good second half GT.
We'll also get an opportunity to see if Nathacsa goes for the half magic as well. I have to think probably. Looks like Xyrak attempted the 6-slash strategy as well. Unfortunately, got a little bit outside of the way. You'll notice that while one of these puffs is exploding, he's going to use the lag that the game is encountering to line up the next slash with a little bit extra time. With that, we also have Temple entering the Ice Palace as well. Dodechehedron and Xyrak are going to be heading to Swamp Palace next, and Nathacsa is actually picking up the half magic. Most of the rest of the run that we have here has just minimal item collection. After our runners do either Ice Palace or Swamp Palace, they may elect to go up to the top of Death Mountain to pick up the Ether so they can get into Misery Mire. And they also are going to need to pick up the Ice Rod at some point before they can go into Turtle Rock. Although the time that they choose to do so is entirely up to them. There's several times that are relatively identical, depending on the route. Or one or two screen transitions difference, so it's not much of a difference to choose to get them now or later. Looks like both Dodechehedron and Xyrak are wasting no time to head straight to Swamp Palace.
Temple coming up to the IPBJ.
Has 2 bombs to work with. This will be tight. Looks like Temple does it the way that I do it. I prefer the sword and head lineup myself. Or not the sword, just the Link's head lineup. Oh, that's an unfortunate fall.
You guessed on the second one, though. Good to go. He got them both, didn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That's a scary thing to see. Getting bombs after that would be tough. I mean, you have the blue jeweled enemies, or the floating enemies of the room before that you can potentially farm, but if you kill them already, that's tough. Ooh, Nathacsa unfortunately getting grabbed by the wall master, or the floor master in Skull Woods. Here in Swamp Palace, we have an extremely linear route through the left half of the dungeon and then back through the back half of the dungeon. There's not a whole lot of things besides simple movement and swimming optimizations that they can do to make this dungeon faster, and there's not a ton of RNG that they're going to encounter in the rooms leading up to the boss. Argus himself is an interesting boss to watch, though. Some of our runners may attempt to do the infamous zero cycle kill for the boss, which is extremely difficult. It also relies upon some frame-perfect inputs.
Off to the cold stair fight. Stumple.
Whew, Temple's through it. That was close. Even one of the ice shards falling from the ceiling could have killed Temple at that point with 2 hearts left. So both Cold Stare and the falling damage was something to watch out for there. Managed to get through the fight pretty well, though. We also have Nathacsa picking up their Fire Rod, making their way to the Mothiel fight. As Temple leaves Ice Palace, we'll see whether or not this is the time when they choose to pick up Ice Rod or Ether.
What if we'll see a zero cycle attempt for Argus out of Dode here?
I get the feeling I think Dode is going to try it. Oh, that was gutsy. So came just a little bit shy. It may have been a combination of boss movements and the RNG of that. But if you were to continue to get all of the puffs from that position, he could have prevented the puffs from spinning around the boss, which we call a zero cycle. Either way, very effective finish. On the left half of the screen, we're going to see Nathacsa and Xyrak going after their respective bosses relatively at the same time. Nathacsa heading for Mothula. We'll see whether or not a fairy will be needed for this fight, and we'll see if Xyrak attempts a zero cycle.
While Nathacsa fighting a bug, Temple entering the Ice Palace, Xyrak on his way, Dode listening to a monologue.
Wow, Nathacsa getting really close, but making good use of the fire rod to finish things out. Much better than using a slash there. Well, it seemed like Xyrak did alright for most of the zero cycle approach, but unfortunately had to turn around a little bit and lost the first cycle. But we get a very clean one cycle finish out of Xyrak there. With that, it looks like Dodechehedron's going to choose to get the Ether on the way to Misery Mire, as that is the next dungeon for him to complete. Xyrak will be doing the exact same. We'll find out whether or not they grab Ice Rod in this split or the next split shortly. After all of that bug killing and the extermination in Swamp or Skull Woods, Nathacsa is going to make their next move. Looks like to pick up some potions, possibly. Or maybe not. Probably having a brief moment of wondering, wait a second, where am I going? I had this happen to me the other day, and I lost a lot of time over that. But remembering that we need the flippers in order to head to Ice Palace. Looks like Dodechehedron did choose to get the Ice Rod at this point. Dode could be doing this after Misery Mire, doesn't matter which. Basically the same amount of time either way. Xyrak unfortunately getting hit by a Tektite there. The next time you head up Death Mountain, which is now, they spawn the Tektites. You don't actually have that the first time on your ascent as you head to Tower of Hera. Do we get the fabled bird toss out of Dodechehedron today?
I certainly hope so.
That's a man of honor. He chooses to walk into the dungeon with it.
Bird carry. We got a new meme.
Hashtag bird carry. I really don't think I've ever seen that before.
I think I've heard of it happening once, but I hadn't actually seen it until just now.
Hey, we're trailblazers in this tournament.
Truth.
JR Racing fan in chat saying that he's taking the bird home to Viddy. I like the idea. Home of the annoying things. It would appear Xyrak 2 does have potentially a love for the memes. As Dode and Xyrak head into Misery Mire and start work through that dungeon, we also have Temple here making his attempt on Argus. Looks like we're just going to have a regular boss fight here.
Yeah, Temple's going to take it easy, make sure that he gets through the fight without losing his hearts.
For those of you who play this game casually but never run the game, you may be wondering, why do we go to Swamp Palace so late in the run? I mean, after all, it's the 2 crystal on the map, right? Why exactly do we do that?
I want to say it's just more for pathing, but generally it's kind of like a breather after ice but before mire. I don't think there's any real reason to do it then, aside from just pathing.
Well, actually, I wonder, is there a stone that you have to have? No, you can use Power Glove to get to the Quake Medallion, can't you?
Yeah, no, you need the Titan's Myth to get to Quake.
That's definitely the reason then. But yeah, being able to get the Quake Medallion and Flippers all at once is a big part of it. But the nice advantage of doing this so late in the run is that we hit to have Tempered Sword for those fights. The game doesn't expect us to have Tempered Sword. They think that we're gonna... They think. The game is programmed to, have a difficulty curve based on Master Sword. And so having Tempered Sword there makes those fights so much easier. If you have to do it with Master Sword, you have to take 2 swipes to kill those puffs, for example. All of these route decisions and the way that this game has been optimized over the years, we used to see in a long time past, a link to the past even, different types of, routing based on, dungeon preference, based on, which glitches we knew about at the time. And the nature of the category itself, it used to be a true any % before, exploration glitch was discovered. So this community has changed a lot over the time. We also have a lot of different runs that people can watch. There's Master Sword %, where you simply end the timer right at the, as soon as you get the Master Sword. This eliminates Aghanim 1 RNG, but there's a lot to watch in this community, not just the no major glitches category. It looks like Dodechehedron's taking on Vitreous right now, getting so far 3 cycles, possibly 4. This fight's very dangerous. Pretty much everything can kill you fast. I mean, the eyeballs, if you touch them, or the main one, do 4 hearts of damage. But the most common strategy, which you got to see him employ there, is walking into the goop that's on the floor. It does 1 heart of damage. You get some invincibility frames, so you can charge up a spin, go right into the middle of them all, and hit, 7 or 8 of them all at once. And if you do this optimally, you can only take 4 hearts of damage and finish the boss. Worst case scenario is you get close to 1 heart, which Dodechehedron had, and have to use arrows to try and clear out the rest. But the last phase just requires 8 arrows straight to the large eye, and that's it. Misery Mire.
Commonly referred to as the WQ strat there, but it is definitely the most safe and optimal, if done right, safe and optimal way to finish off that fight.
One thing you may see from different boss fights, or different runners doing that boss fight, is you'll notice that the lightning attacks become more frequent the less eyeballs that are left. So it does behoove you to have as few cycles as possible, particularly finishing off the last couple of those eyeballs. Looks like Xyrak got a lot in that second sword spin. Almost pulled off the 0 cycle.
You get the 1 cycle, but the more important part is he defeated the eyeball without dying.
Yep, it's a really punishing loss. It takes a very long time to get back there from the dungeon entrance.
It's right on par with a cold stare death, which in my estimation is the worst one to take, time-wise.
And for your morale.
And morale, yeah.
Or Ganon falls when you're on PB pace.
Last spin, just fall. It's the worst feeling.
We do get a little bit of crystal sync here on the left half of the screen. Looks like Dode's our stream leader right now, though. Already heading into Turtle Rock. I wonder if he's going to try the medallion dash. As that is a manual staircase there. Hey, he gets it! All of our runners seem to use pretty similar strategies for Cold Stare, though. They all want to try to pin Cold Stare into the top right corner. Nathacsa pretty much relying on sword spins from then on out to finish everything up. But nobody died to Cold Stare. That's an important thing to see in a race. As we were talking about before, it's costly to lose to a boss when you don't have any other entrances closer to the boss. Cold Stare is extra difficult because you have to have magic to get back in. And usually you use all of your magic, unless you have half magic, just destroying the ice shell.
Yeah, if you don't have half magic and you miss with even one fire rod shot, you have to mirror out because you need the full 8, which is a full bar of magic.
There is an alternate way that you can attack Cold Stare. If you have full health when you walk into the fight and you line up sword beams with the fire rod shots themselves, you can actually do it with half as much magic. But it's not very well known. Like, a lot of people wouldn't think to do that, like, as a backup in the middle of the fight.
Yeah, I actually heard about that during this tournament too. I didn't even know that till then.
Same. I saw Terra do it, actually. I was pretty impressed by that. Shout out to Germany. We've been talking throughout this run about how the difficulty curve really does spike up throughout all these dungeons. Turtle Rock is no exception. The enemies hit hard. You don't have a lot of health to pick up until you get to the anti-fairies later. And if you didn't take powder, this is a pretty easy place to lose your run.
Turtle Rock is pain.
We get to see Xyrak there taking advantage of the torches being hookshotable to go through that room, taking advantage also of the invincibility throughout the hookshot animation to get past these rollers. Doesn't elect to take the damage boost to get through these, but may just want to preserve health. Oh, and I missed it previously, but Dodechehedron actually did get the prize pack correctly, because he did manage to pick up a fairy right before that chomp room. Shoutouts to Hyrule Castle guards.
Yeah, and even if you set it up right, there's no guarantee that you're going to get it there either. That's the worst part about it.
Definitely a great place to get one, though.
Xyrak making use of sword beams here, but not pushing the block. There we go. Nice enough.
That timing is perfect. Seems Temple's going backwards through Misery Mire. I'm not sure if he forgot something. He must have the big key. He has the Cane of Samaria. I'm not sure where he's heading. Does he need a bomb? I think he needs a bomb. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he does need a bomb. He has 0. He needs to go kill a bomb slug, and not with a dash.
Which is kind of frustrating, because that's exactly how I'd want to kill a bomb slug. We get to see a nice use of the Cane of Samaria here from Dodechehedron. It's a very fast way to get through that room. You can do it with a cane dash too, but that's kind of harder to do on the spot. With that, we'll get to see our first attempt at Trynex. There's a couple different strategies our runners can take. For the most part, people either go to right behind the heads here, that we're going to see Dodechehedron do, or right in front. This is a little bit faster as you can attack before the heads fully extend and start doing their attack cycle. Very nice. Looks like a 1 cycle? No, 2. Easily one of the most common reasons that you don't beat Trynex has to do more with magic than it does with health. While Trynex can absolutely hit you for a lot of hearts, it's pretty predictable. So, I mean, running out of magic and missing your shots is a lot worse. Dodechehedron didn't have that problem, only got hit once, and managed to clear the fight. And meanwhile, Temple still looking for bombs. This is rough to see. Xyrak pulled off the laser bridge skip with no damage. Very nicely done. And Xyrak also did show us that cane dash. Item dashing can come in hand in a lot of different situations just to save time, but in my opinion, it's more for style.
Temple's got his bomb on his way back. Very nice first phase by Xyrak there.
Yep. Tight window to not get hit by that center head. And if he's lucky, you can get a really... Well, if he's well-timed, you can get 2 spins there. And just to keep things tense, finishes it off with 1 hit to go. Dode, though, is heading into Ganon's Tower already. This is a really great pace. Looking at his personal best, his PB is 1 hour and 29 minutes and 5 seconds as of speedrun.com, which is our official leaderboard. Be interesting to see if he can get through Ganon's Tower fast enough to put his PB in contention here.
It'd be really tight. A good Ganon's Tower is about 7.5 minutes, so be really tight.
Yeah, it might be a little short there.
And then your good Ganon fight's looking at 2 flat, so.
With Argus down, it looks like Nathacsa should be heading up to Death Mountain to pick up the Ether Medallion, possibly the Ice Rod, and then heading over to Misery Mire. Meanwhile, we have Temple attempting Vitreous. Dodechehedron's doing a really great and consistent strategy against the Ice Armos here. It's hard to move with the ice physics on the floor, but one thing that you can take advantage of is how the Ice Armos don't start their circle pattern until they've all reached the position that they're going to start it from. So if you keep them bouncing and keep using, well-timed and well-placed arrows, you can actually put yourself in position to do the same fast kill strategy from Eastern Palace, possibly in a different position usually. Looks like Temple got through Vitreous, no problems. Here in Ganon's Tower, we have a series of rooms that are all kill rooms, just like it was, say, in Desert Palace earlier with those popos. We call this the Gauntlet. We're going to have two halves of it as we go up 2 sets of stairs. It's a very challenging and, input-heavy, input-sensitive section with a lot of RNG. We'll see how Dode handles these sections going forward. Xyrak not too far behind, getting ready to fight against Ice Armos. And we have Temple heading to Turtle Rock as well.
First gauntlet room here. Nicely done. So the gauntlet's all really about just reacting to the RNG that you get in the room as best you can. And your good times will just come from knowledge and experience and knowing how to handle the way the enemies move.
Another concern that our runners may have is their arrow count. Xyrak there managed to finish Ice Armos with exactly enough arrows. It's frustrating if the last one re-heals and you have to use sword strategies. But he does get a free 10 arrow box right behind the big key. You're going to need those for the mimics coming up ahead.
Yeah, it's definitely a frustrating spot to run out of arrows, especially on the ice and whatnot.
Looks like Dode got the optimal fire rod kill on Lammo too. If you get the first one, that's probably the hardest one to hit. If you do a sword slash at the right time, and then you can just do 2 fire rods in the next ones. Also very efficient Wizrobe rooms, both of them using the Cane of Samaria to get through them without having any delay, no extra cycles.
So going through the second four torches room, he'll be revisiting a third like world boss fight. Yeah, he's going to be facing Moldorm again.
Everybody's favorite boss.
We both said it at the same time. Everybody's favorite.
It's either that or Lamolus. I mean, I can't think of two that are more hated.
I gotta go with Lamro. Lamro's the worst.
I think I struggle more with Lamolus than Moldorm. Moldorm just feels more, I don't know, salty. Subpar chess player asking if our runners are allowed to watch the restream. Yes, they are allowed to. There's no advantage that you would get. I guess you could decide to take different safeties, but ultimately it's down to the strength of each runner's actual run. Above all else, that's what determines who wins here. So there's no, material advantage to seeing this restream.
Very true.
Temple getting really close to these chomps.
Dode is into the symmetry and angles fight here. See how well he can handle the angles.
Geometry Wars?
Yeah, Geometry Wars. I like it.
Oh no. Unfortunately, the hit that Aghanim 2 took knocked him into the wall, and so he didn't do his actual last shot, causing an extra cycle for Dodechehedron.
Yeah, if he's right up against it, it's frustrating, especially when you can get a 3 cycle on him, and it's just like, yeah, that third one's not going to count, sorry.
Dode making some Slightly inappropriate gestures. We're going to have to flag him for spiking the football there.
Xyrak, meanwhile, is cleaning up Moldorm 2. Spinning a slash, that's all we need.
And with that, Xyrak is going to make his attempt on Aghanim 2. Nathacsa making their way to the basement of Misery Mire, and not too far behind in the dungeon progression, Temple is on their way to Xyrak shortly, and the laser bridge skip. That's an unfortunate blue ball, knocked him off course from hitting the double. And again, I think he may have ate the shot since he was already in damage animation. Xyrak's getting really difficult patterns here. Dodechehedron's been handling this Ganon fight very well, though, getting very effective first and second cycles already through the third, and the fourth this should be over in just a few more sword spins. One of the advantages of using the fire rod with these sword spins is that you can have the sword charged up while you are hitting the lamp. By doing so, you can squeeze in a third sword spin each cycle if you time it correctly with Ganon's warps.
Yeah, those 3 hit cycles are the way to go. That's how you get your sub 2 Ganon fights.
And with that, Dodechehedron has finally vanquished Ganon. Xyrak hot in his heels, though.
Dodechehedron has won his race with an official speed racing TV time of 1:31.54. A very, very big GG to Dodechehedron.
Fantastic race.
See if he wants to come in for an interview.
We have a lot of boss fights going on screen right now. We have Temple here with finishing up Trinex. The first phase. Hopefully he doesn't get hit by the head here. Meanwhile, Nathacsa finishes off Vitreous without taking too many hearts of damage. Xyrak's finishing up phase 4 of Ganon. And Temple, unfortunately, gets hit by Trinex. But he does have a fairy. That fairy really does pay off. I'm betting he's not regretting that choice now.
Yeah, definitely not.
And with that, Xyrak has also finished Ganon.
Xyrak about to win his race, and he does with an official speed racing TV time of 1:33.23. So very, very, very big GG to Xyrak for winning his race as well. There we're joined now by Dodechehedron. Very nice race, sir.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I hadn't touched the game in a while, so I'm definitely kind of pleased with that.
It's a solid time, man. Very well
Yeah,
done.
it's not bad for it being dusty.
Thank you.
The run was very clean overall, though. I think you only had, what, 4 blue balls from Aghanim. Pretty smooth through every single boss fight. I didn't think we had too many moments there we had to worry about your run. Handled it pretty well.
Yeah, thanks. I felt my movement was just super sloppy from not touching it in a while, but as long as you don't die and generally execute the route correctly, it usually works pretty well for a race.
And I believe there's a Moldorm fall too, is that right?
A double hole Moldorm. I don't think I've ever done that in a run before.
Oh, the middle hole. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The name of the game is no major glitches, no major mistakes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Pretty pleased with that. Seems like Xyrak had a pretty good run too, like a minute off his PB.
Yeah, you got a 131.17. It definitely looks like a solid run from him as well.
Doe, would you say there were any points in your run that were like a high point or a low point? You worried, not worried?
Mentally, the low point, and it wasn't visually obvious, but I actually got lost in swamp. Like, I'm like, where do I go now? Just from not doing it in so long. But so that was like my mental low point. Like, okay, let's get over it. But high point, I think lane mode 3 cycle was pretty good.
That was really nice looking. All in all, though, very solid finish to your race. Your opponent, Nathacsa, is currently in Turtle Rock. Rest of the chat obviously cheering them on in Temple. Looking forward and looking ahead, I believe this is your first race in the group stage, is that right?
Yes.
When is your next race, do you know?
We haven't scheduled it yet, but probably next week.
We'll be excited to see that happen. This was definitely a strong victory today.
Mm-hmm.
We're joined now by Xyrak as well. GG on the win.
GG, Xyrak.
Thanks a lot, guys. GG, Dode.
GG to you as well.
So Xyrak, this looked like a pretty solid run for you here. You sold a couple minute or two off your PB, right?
Yeah, I finished plus 117 at the end.
Very nice, very solid.
Yeah, other than pod, which a big chunk of that was me having to farm 5 rupees for Kiki. There were definitely like every dungeon had like one bad room, I would say, but I managed to more or less keep it solid. Other than Palace of Darkness.
Yeah, as they say, NMG, no major mistakes, right?
That's right. Yeah.
No major glitches, no major mistakes. But yeah, it definitely looked like aside from a few hiccups, it was pretty clean.
Yeah, looking back on it, I feel pretty decent about it. Like I said, the only thing was farming those rupees and having to reset the hammer jump on the first try. Right before I had to reset it, I got the pixel, and then I apparently walked north without setting the bomb first. And so I was like, I'm not going to have enough time to reset it before the bridge gets here, so just take the fall and redo it, which I think was the right decision at the time.
No, it's a whole lot better than 20 pause buffers and not getting it.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, hammer jump can be one of those kind of nerve-wracking tricks to do, especially when you're falling behind on the bridge and you're, struggling to get that first pixel set up.
That being said, though, I don't think we had any boss deaths out of either of you, Dodechehedron or Xyrak. Is that correct?
I haven't died. I don't think I died at all. But I did come down to 1 heart on, I think, like 3 of the bosses.
There's some tight moments. Very nervous.
Yeah, I had a bunch of those too. I took 1 intentional death in Skullwoods after the fire ride because I just got batted around in the mummy room.
Yeah, and you fell off the
I
ledge on
ended off with
purpose.
2 hearts, and it was just super happy.
Yeah.
Well, that is the one example in this category where a death warp is allowed. If you're gonna, just go back to the entrance of the dungeon to heal, that's not a big deal. But in the overworld, we can't allow that in this category. It looks like you used that to great effect, though. I mean, you didn't have any actual, plain deaths.
No, even though I was really close in a few spots. I think I finished Helmasaur, Thieves, and another boss all on 1 heart. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, that was a little nerve-wracking, but
yeah, Helma charged me with 1 heart, and I got a little terrified there. I think I was pinned up against the wall, and I don't know how his hitbox didn't touch me, but I'm just going to be fortunate.
Yeah, I remember that fight. You clutched that out pretty well, by my eyes.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about
I
how
pulled out the bow, anticipating just playing it safe, and then he just charged me, and I was like, well, that wasn't the good. That was not the good move there.
we mentioned with Dode how this was the first match of his group phase. Xyrak, you haven't already done a match yet, have you?
No, this is my first one. I get the honor of getting crushed by BTX on Saturday, and then the race for all, probably the race for all the marbles will be against Swerve on the 12th. So I still have my other two upcoming.
Then again, I mean, after all of the fake flipper mishaps we've seen in this tournament and all the other things that have killed runs, you never know what's going to happen. It's always worth it. If you can get a 133, in every race, you stand a chance against anybody messing up.
Yeah, no, it's true. There's a reason why you play the race, right? So who knows? It's true.
Definitely a commanding victory today, though. We have, just to kind of tie us back to the race here, we have Nathacsa finishing up the back half of Turtle Rock right now, and Temple's making the ascent through Ganon's Tower, looking to be through the Landmo fight up next. Xyrak, so you mentioned that you have your next match, was that a couple days from now?
On Saturday afternoon.
That'll be fun to see. So we definitely have two of our runners' schedules. Well, one of our runners' schedules figured out. Dode's left to schedule his soon. Looking forward, though, it looks like both of you guys have a great opportunity in your group stage. It'll be really fun to see how the whole seeding ends up playing out. And both of you are pretty close to your PBs in this race. It'd be interesting to see if in your next race we can pull off something a little bit quicker.
I hope so. I mean, if I nail hammering on first try, like if I don't move off that pixel on that first attempt, and everything else goes the same, I'm 40 seconds faster, probably, easily. That's assuming all the other stuff that happened, all the garbage that happened in Tower of Hera, which I was also running around in on one heart basically the whole time, which with all the mini mold worms everywhere is also nerve-wracking. But yeah, hopefully just clean up like the one room a dungeon kind of thing that was not that great in this run, and hopefully we can put something special together.
Hey, great opportunity to use that practice hack from poor little Pinkus.
Yeah, that's right. I was definitely warming up on it before the race, so
That's a fantastic hack.
Shoutouts to Pinkus for that hack. It's made learning the games very, very much easier for newcomers and veterans alike.
Speaking of hammer jumps, since we were talking about it earlier, Nathacsa's currently working on Trinex, but Nathacsa was the only one to do bufferless.
Yeah, that's impressive.
yeah, that is. I've practiced bufferless a few times, but I am not confident enough to pull that out in a serious run or a race. So props there for sure.
I think I used to try that until I learned that you just get 2 free ones anyway. To switch to bomb and back to mirror.
Right, it makes sense to do the buffers anyway.
Yeah.
Pause buffering is definitely something that people new to this run need to incorporate into their routes. I would watch for I would just watch a run somebody does just to see where it's effective. You'll save yourself from a lot of bad inputs.
Yeah, pause buffering is incredibly useful, especially when you're in just a tight situation. Maybe it costs 5 seconds to do 3 or 4 pauses, but it's way better than a 3 or 4 minute death.
Temple's coming up to the Aga 2 fight here. It looks like Nathacsa has just finished off T-Rock. So I'll be certainly rooting them on to a strong finish here.
Just like our Aga 1 fight, Aghanim 2, the actual real Aghanim out of the 3, does still have a coin flip 50-50 chance of giving you blue balls, and those blue balls can mess with your aiming and the trajectory of these yellow attacks, so it's important to watch out for that.
And the copies will also always launch force balls, though.
Looks like Temple got through that. Was that 4 cycles, I think?
Yeah.
Certainly good to have nearly full health walking into Ganon plus half magic. This should be a pretty clean fight for Temple as long as they don't have a fall or too many hugs.
Don't hug the pig.
Yeah, it's definitely frowned upon.
Here in the beginning of the Ganon fight, we have a couple of different approaches to fighting Ganon. The most common strategy is to try to get a 1-in-1 cycle where Ganon only throws one trident, only does one ring of bats, or the Johnny Cash strat, where you just walk into the ring of fire once. Unfortunately, Temple wasn't positioned well with Ganon, depending on, like, his Ganon can have 4 different positions he warps to in the first phase. Wasn't able to pull off the 1-in-1. Looks like a 2-in-2. As long as he got 12 slashes on that cycle, should be a 2-cycle. Yep, and it looks like he's going to do the third. Same strategy here. You just got to hit Ganon once when he becomes visible, and then he's going to smash the floor. After 4 of those, we're going to walk into our 4th phase of those spins that we were talking about earlier. It'd be interesting to see if Temple goes after the Fire Rod strats or the Lamp strats. I would hope he'd use Fire Rod with half magic, though.
He'll probably stick with the lamp. He's most comfortable with it.
He certainly won't run out of magic, so that's always a good thing to be able to fall back on. Since we didn't mention it before, he also managed to get the torch glitch. If you light that left torch before the right one goes out, and the first time, then the right one will never go out. And then you only have to light the left one, sporadically. It's a lot easier to get 2 or even 3 attacks in per cycle if you do it that way. Looks like just a couple more.
Well, a pretty solid fight here from Temple.
Yeah, I mean, it's not such a big deal to have the extra cycles in the beginning. He only took 1 hit. I mean, that's the safest way to get through Ganon. Or no, 2, I believe. He has red mail. If you're not feeling confident about Ganon, or even if you're in a race setting like we are here, it's definitely worth it to get the red mail. If you're really tight in your race, that's one thing, but for the time saved for what it costs you to fall or die to Ganon, absolutely worth picking up if you're not 100% certain on where you are with that fight. It's a fight that you have to practice a lot, so no shame one way or the other for taking these safeties. At the end of the day, it just matters that you don't die.
So the name of the game is to finish the run. For the newer players, it's a good opportunity to get out and see some veteran runners, see some top tier runners, and just do your thing and get better as you go along the way.
GG to Temple, though. We'll see if we get Temple into the chat or the voice chat for an interview. Nathacsa, unfortunately, getting stomped a bit by Armos' final phase. If you get stuck in the corner there, it can be really hard to move out. Best strategy, in my opinion, is just use a sword slash to get some distance. But you do have to be in a different spot than Armos when he goes for his next attack. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck underneath him. We'll also see the red mail out of Nathacsa here.
So Temple's official time was 1:47:31 today. So GG.
With Nathacsa finishing up Gan's tower here, everybody in the chat, please cheer Nathacsa on, representing Brazil and the speedrunning community. It'd be interesting to see how we handle the rest of the gauntlet.
Go Nat go! Let's get those Go Nat goes in the chat for Nathacsa here.
It looked like we were trying to use the switches there to limit the number of spikes that were going through there, and regrettably, that actually made it a little bit worse. But after coming back through, we do have one heart left. If we can get through the torch room here without taking too much damage, we should be okay. Oh, actually, no, we're going to head up to the gauntlet too. I was looking at the wrong room. Probably going to take the safeties. Okay, good. We're getting the safety fairies. That'd be a good choice for the second half here. Anybody who doesn't know that room from, maybe having played this casually and never realizing you could bonk across, there's also a full magic pot at the bottom that you can grab as well. So it's pretty much a full refresh before you go into the this half of the gauntlet.
I actually didn't know about the bonk across until I started speedrunning this game. I'm not gonna lie.
Same, but I mean, it was an intended strat. You can definitely do it in Misery Mire.
Yeah, it's true. Good point. But I think the game intends you to have the hook shot there, so... But, yeah, I mean, yeah, you can definitely get across, though.
Due to having the half magic, Nathacsa has a little bit more magic to work with here, so using the fire rod through a lot of these rooms will make things a lot easier. If you're really in a bind and you're just struggling with a room, you can use a medallion as well. It's just a bit of a time sink to do so. There's a couple of rooms though with some of them having a ton of mini Helmosaurs that are definitely good to do so in.
Go, Nat, go.
Now, the best strategy for this room with the Wizrobes is you can place a Samaria block. If you're walking forward, you just place it left. The conveyor belt will actually walk it a little bit closer towards the Wizrobe if you want to time it right. But if you release that and walk to the top right Wizrobe and slash that, you can get it all in one cycle, just walking right through the room. I haven't seen a response from Temple in the tournament Discord. I'm not sure if we're going to have an interview with Temple. But I also want to take the opportunity to, one, thank the two runners who are with us here, Dodechehedron and Xyrak, for putting on this great race. Also want to encourage everybody to follow them on their Twitch channels. Link we post in the chat just a moment. These are great runners. You're going to see a couple more races out of each of them. And this tournament, we should see, from what I can tell, I think these two runners are both advancing on to the next phase. We'll see how their next two races go. But it'll definitely be exciting to see how close these guys get to their PBs. They are already within a couple minutes in this race.
Yeah, we'll see how everything shakes out going forward.
Ooh, Nathacsa, they're getting very close to not having any bombs for that wall. That is the last bomb we'll need for the run, though, so it should be in the clear. Having no problems whatsoever with Moldorm 2.
Agatune again, I'd love to get 3 urns to go.
I'm actually curious to figure out how long into this run we are, because Nathacsa's PB right now is 157, but I don't have a timer to work to reference from. Let me see if I can check that out.
We'll get the Speed Racing TV timer.
I see. Alright, so this is looking a little bit outside of a PB run for Nathacsa, although relatively close, should be within a couple minutes. Let's see if we can get the sub 2 hour run. We're at 157 now. It'll be tight if we do. All right, Agatu is down. It's time to call for a quick bird taxi and head our way all the way down to Ganon's, or the Hyrule Castle to the pyramid. I don't know what I'm talking about. The pyramid to finish off Ganon.
The only time that the bird will appear in the Dark Realm is right here, right now.
I want answers. That doesn't make sense.
Same, actually.
At least they explained it in A Link Between Worlds by having it be a witch instead of a bird, but...
Yeah, true. That was a great game, by the way.
Yeah, if any of you have a love for A Link to the Past, you would also love that game. It's definitely a great spiritual successor.
I actually bought a 3DS specifically for it.
I believe, Nathacsa, there was that a one cycle on the first? Some very close calls there. Down to half a heart. We have made it into phase 3. We just got to avoid these fire bats, and we may be able to finish all of this without having to use any kind of fairy safety here.
Go, Nat, go!
Give Nat your energy, folks. We got this.
Oh, nice torch glitch. Very nice.
standing a little bit too far away in order to get the sword spins. If Nat can get a little bit closer, this should be a little easier to pull off.
Just as a front, what we have next, coming up on Speed Gaming 1, we have Ori and the Blind Forest. All Skills Tournament, Cheese Lover versus Trojan Dude. And over on Speed Gaming 2, we have Xyrak versus Jatab for Link to the Past NMG Tournament. Continuing on Speed Gaming 2. So be sure to stay tuned to Speed Gaming 1 or 2, just whatever your preference is. And be sure to follow all the runners, commentators, and all the speedrunning channels.
And here's another example of why it never is a bad idea to take the fairy bugnet, bottle combo. It's definitely something that will save your hide more often than not.
Cannot agree more.
Looking over to tomorrow's schedule for this tournament, we have a lot of matches scheduled for Tuesday. We've got a 10 a.m. match between Nikki Noel and JC. We have 2 p.m. We have 2 races at the same time: Superman Taylor, Bamboo Shadow, and Blunt Bunny versus Drunken Draconian. 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10 p.m. We have matches all day tomorrow. You can find them here restreamed on the Speed Gaming family of networks. Nathacsa, unfortunately taking a Ganon fall there.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Also, a quick shout out to Fiesel and the Speed Gaming crew for hosting our tournament and allowing us to, giving us the option of restreaming it. So thank you to them as well.
Some folks out there might be asking why we choose to catch the fairy rather than just take the healing, since it wouldn't have been full health anyway. You can actually take extra hits. If you take a hit, for example, that does more than your maximum amount of, or more than your remaining amount of health, you're not going to take extra damage. The healing will apply fully afterwards, so you can potentially get an extra hit out of it. This time around, though, Nathacsa has to be very careful to avoid extra hits because there's only that much health to be recovered from one fairy, so we're going to make good use of hookshot invincibility strats here, hopefully.
Ganon is giving the business here. Oh, you got a fairy. Come on,
Good
Nat.
example of where you can take an extra hit. With that, we're moving into phase 3, though. If we can get these sword spins down in the next phase, this should all work out pretty smoothly. One lesser known fact when it comes to Ganon, if you get hit by those fire bats, the direction that you're pressing with your D-pad actually reverses. So this is a very easy way to fall off when you get hit by it. If you don't expect it to reverse your direction, you may just push away from the edge and knock yourself off the ledge inadvertently.
I've definitely done that once or twice while I was learning the game.
Speaking of learning the game, there are a lot of resources out there. A lot of the better runners of this category, I would say, have put out tutorials online. You can find them here on Twitch. You can find them on YouTube. Personally, I would recommend, anything, for example, that, Andy or Blunt Bunny, or I think Fruit Bats' tutorial is really popular. They're very thorough about explaining all these rooms and all these techs. So there's a lot out there to, break you into this scene. I definitely recommend picking up this game.
It's such a fun speedrun. Like, this is the second game I've really taken seriously, and I'm glad I picked this one.
And with that, it looks like we have finally finished off the pig for the 4th time in a short 2-hour span.
Nathacsa clocking in with an official speed racing TV time of 2:05:46. GG and nice perseverance.
GG. We'll see if we... Well, we do actually have a race coming up pretty shortly. I'm not sure if we'll be able to get an interview with Nathacsa.
And with that, we have to move on to Ori and the Blind Forest. But this has been Xyrak 91384.
And I'm Uday Ministik. Thanks for tuning in, folks, and stay tuned. We got another race coming up.
Thanks for watching.